We're all awake now. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, and this is the regular governing board meeting of the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board. I hereby call this meeting to order. For our first item on the agenda, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Mr. Rowan McFarland, who is a fourth grader from Palm Valley, to come lead us in the pledge. Thank you for that. Next, we will move on to a moment of silent reflection. Okay. Next, we are going to move on to recognitions and celebrations, and this is going to be led by Executive Director Nuanes.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Superintendent Davidson, fellow cabinet members, community members present, both here and online. As you know, here in the Litchfield Elementary School District, we are extremely proud of all the outstanding educational experience that we provide for all of our students. That is all of our students. Tonight's celebration highlights the great work of Principal Dr. Kimberly Hill and her team. With sales classrooms on the Palm Valley campus, they recognized the need. The need was for more intentional interaction between students with and without disabilities. Enter Unified Sports. PE instructor Kelly Jordan took a high school concept and adapted it to an elementary model. With the help of Mrs. Armstrong, Ms. Cinco, and Ms. Schott, she was able to purposely select athletes and partners. The program was a success right from the start. Now, I could continue to talk for a little while longer, but let's just take a look. And togetherness and like accepting everybody. It's just been a wonderful thing. We really do. You know, and then just you can tell how much they adore them and they want to be better than them, and then a wonderful thing to be. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. Oh my God. I think I have some goosebumps. Oh, that was amazing. This program is growing by the day. The student interest to become partners is growing and it's growing. And so will this program. The Unified Sports Program at Palm Valley Elementary School, as I'm sure will have a long-lasting positive impact, not only on their students, but on their entire campus. So tonight, let's have another round of applause for Dr. Hill, Kelly Jordan, and her team, and everybody in the Unified Sports Program. I'd now would like to invite you all up so we could take a picture with Governing Board and Superintendent Davidson. Governing Board President.
Before we move on, I'm
Do
sorry.
you have
Yes.
do you have any questions for?
I don't have any questions, and sorry, I'm going to jump in front of everybody, but I was able to attend this event, and it was so fun to just watch the kids be excited for their friends that were participating and cheering them on, and the kids that were getting to participate in the sports. I too am a mom of a child with autism. I also have an adult brother that has autism. And so I know what it's like for them to be able to participate in these activities and feel included and feel special and feel cheered for, and like they did something and accomplished something, and how important that is for their development and their growth. So I am so thankful to Kelly Jordan for getting this going on her campus. I'm excited because hopefully we'll get to see it grow on other campuses moving forward. I brought this up this summer, actually, that I was hoping we could do some kind of unified sports in our schools. And they told me Kelly Jordan was already on it, which of course she is, because that's who she is, right? So thank you to you for all the work that you're doing to make sure that these kids feel included every day. You are such a blessing to your campus and to our district. And thank you to all our students and our families that came out tonight. We appreciate all of you so much. Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Ms. Moran or Ms. Clymer? I'll start with Ms. Clymer. Go ahead.
No, I don't have anything extra to say. I wasn't able to attend the event, but as Melissa mentioned, as soon as you hear Kelly Jordan and the Palm Valley Thunderbirds, you know it's going to be amazing. So thank you for all that you do for not only your students, but also the other staff members and parents and community that get to be involved. I know it takes a lot of extra time out of your day and out of your work day and personal life to do this. So kudos to you and your entire staff. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
I think both of you said it perfectly. I'm also very appreciative of this program and look to see it continue and all the good things that Ms. Jordan's doing. I appreciate you.
Next, we are going to move on to public comment. We have 2 tonight. I will start with the disclaimer. Sorry. Okay. Pursuant to ARS revised statutes 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Our first speaker will be Mr. Mike Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Finnegan. I'd like to begin by recognizing Kim Contra, School Secretary Extraordinaire, for producing such a professional work product, capturing school board meetings in minutes. I have not been to the past couple of meetings, but she has really helped me to get caught up. To the LASD dysfunctional school board, who only has 2 sitting members up on the stage, for the past 2 years, down these school hallways, I walked with you, seeing students doing what we hoped they wouldn't do, wasting time in Chillville. Now these thoughts are haunting me of how successful they could be. In 2022, I lost my faith in public education 2 weeks before Christmas. And I talked to the LASD school board at the sewer, and they said it was none of my goddamn business. While the Litchfield Rain drank champagne to DIE and an A+ district, my ego came and got me wasted, because my sweetest hopes for LASD I ever got are the ones I've never tasted. I wonder how many times I've been to this podium for only 3 minutes, and the loneliness that's been mine afterward. And I wonder if I have put some words together that would make a difference. And I wonder and worry, my friends, afterward, how many times I have been gavelled by this school board, and how many students' futures will go bad from your poor decisions. It seems like my efforts have been wasted, because the sweetest hopes for LASD I ever got are the ones I've never tasted. So LASD's neon programs are bought and borrowed, because my house has become a bank for the groomers in public education. And it's the taxpayer who pays the rent for these PhDs and school board out-of-tuners. And I make 3-minute public speaking friendships every second Tuesday, because this wasteland never really listens. But the teachers will always take their bonus pay while leaving. So you allow these token games on me and give an A+ medal to your schools, because you told the taxpayers everybody's got to pay their dues. And I explained that we have overpaid them. So I escaped within a teardrop, sad that I never persuaded you, because I see teachers trying to drown the sun in weekends of whiskey sours. Because how many times can they wake up in this comic book and plant flowers?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Henderson.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Henderson, and I am coming on behalf of Solution Tree, which is the organization that supports professional learning communities throughout schools all over Arizona and throughout the entire world. I'm actually here to offer you a congratulations. Congratulations on your new letter designations. You should be extremely, extremely proud of all of the hard work that you've done. In fact, I'd like to commend the time, the effort, and the dedication that has been put into your students, into your families, your entire community, and most importantly, to your teachers. With that said, professional learning communities, I'll be really honest with you, it is long, hard, intensive, and very necessary work. With that, we change practices, not just for a day, not just to turn a B to an A for 1 year. This is done for the long term. We promote change that becomes a new normal, a new way of operating, and we don't go back because we're putting the long, hard work in time and time, day after day. With that said, teacher release time is absolutely essential to do this work. So if you're asking yourselves, when do teachers do PLC work? They actually do it during their release time. And this isn't time for them just to go back to their classrooms and change their bulletin boards. This is time where they are working together, they are collaborating, not just on long-term projects or processes. They're talking about individual students and how to do intensive interventions for all students. So with that, I'd like to encourage you, as you're considering your new school calendars and making changes, that you truly put a lot of thought and effort into the investment, which is teacher release time. We want you to not only feel the success tonight that you're feeling, getting those new letter grade designations, but we want you to feel that success for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to pull off, Ms. Clymer?
No, I don't have anything I need to pull off. Thank you.
Ms. Moran, did you have anything that you would like to pull off the consent agenda?
No, I do not.
I do not as well. So if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I will second.
Having a first and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. The motion passes. Next, we're going to jump down to our discussion items. The first item is going to be the superintendent performance objective number 2, facilities and infrastructure needs. This is going to be by Dr. Davidson.
All right, and good evening, Madam President, members of the board, online and in person, as well as our community members and staff. We have a couple of discussions and or presentations tonight. The first one is around my performance objective number 2, which was district operations. This presentation was put together by myself and Mr. Stone, our Executive Director of Operations. And as we begin, because of the vastness of operations, certainly you can see it applies to all 4 areas of our current strategic plan: student success, people, services, finances, as well as resources. Some current reality just to help establish where we are as it relates to operations. You can see we have a lot of building space, 1.3 million square feet, over 400 acres of land to maintain. And most recently, Governing Board, you probably remember last year, Bureau Veritas was hired to come and give us some feedback on our facilities and what we have in front of us, and noting that that was done to prepare us for our future. That particular document established a 20-year timeline for us to think about what we would need to ensure that our facilities are maintained over the next 20 years. And you can see the dollar figure there is quite large if we were to do everything that was necessary to give our facilities again, what they need for the next 20 years. We'd be using both M&O and capital expenditures to do that work. We also work very closely with the School Facilities Oversight Board, or SFOB. Lastly, this information tonight is really also around the preventive maintenance program. Our director, Dan Inson, fantastic, does a lot of work and has worked hard with Mr. Stone and Mr. Vaughn to ensure that we have a preventative maintenance program as we move forward as well. Some challenges, things you might in the audience might wonder about, or things you were uncertain about, but certainly in this time of employee shortages across all platforms, we are understaffed to meet those demands. And that's something we work through every single day, partnering with human resources. An example of that, 580 work orders currently to date, with just 9 team members being able to address those around the district. We have had a distribution of capital dollars coming through the capital committee, but we know that we need to change that, having a certain defined budget for capital expenditures and items associated with operations. And certainly that last bullet point is not a surprise to anyone, that there's been a supply chain crisis, a lack of product, and certainly timelines are impacted when we have those things happen to us. An example of that would be this past summer and early fall when our air conditioners were going out. It has been problematic to get all those machines back in action. And certainly we know that we need to keep working through that one. Some additional challenges. Prioritization of the projects at hand. We know that we have certain things like safety. When we have things that need to be fixed, we address those first and foremost. Also, there are situations across schools connecting with our PTAs and PTOs that might demand some immediate resources. So certainly that presents a challenge for us with a small team. We also know that we need to provide professional development for our department leads and really look at how we are managing our human capital, and are we providing those supports as part of a job embedded professional development experience during their workday, as was actually described by our solution tree representative. And lastly, another challenge is simply the procurement rules. What the state provides us as boundaries or guidelines can sometimes put a damper and slow down some work being done. Some things as we move into the future on behalf of operations. Certainly the board made the vote this past spring to help us change our organizational chart, allowing us to have a representative fully in support of operations. That's been great, a great addition to the team, Mr. Stone there. We have state cooperatives that the board votes upon and allows us to have access to a variety of vendors and to understand the pricing structure just to make it easy and quick when we do need to engage in operations activities. As I mentioned before, our partnership with the School Facilities Oversight Board remains strong. And thank you to Dan and Eric and Michael for being a part of those conversations. We also are a part of ASBO, Arizona Association of School Business Officials, definitely supports the work inside operations. A couple of other items just wanted to highlight outside of relations with vendors would simply be using other directors across the districts and our valley just to talk about what's going on and maybe what are some strategies they have implemented to ensure that the area of operations are going smoothly. Future areas for us. Utility efficiencies. Not certain if it has been done or when it was done, but we recognize that we can be better stewards of our resources in relationship to utilities, whether that's water, whether that's electricity, whether that's our air conditioning expenditure. So we'll be working on that. We're looking at how do we expand our human capital? How do we expand our team perhaps without having to hire them as our own LASD employees? And that would be for different specialty projects, specialty positions. We can look at contracted employees. We'll continue to review our capital expenses in that annual plan as we prioritize how to move forward. Using the information from the Bureau Veritas, talk about lifespan expectancies. And as Dan and his team are working through that annual process for ensuring that things are running smoothly, we'll continue to look at that report. And also, bottom line, make certain that our resources are working to keep our buildings and our schools safe and fully operational. I just wanted to see, share this with the governing board as well as our people in the audience, that $184 million expenditure over 20 years wasn't something that I made up. You can see some of the information here across different columns of years from being short-term to long-term and the approximate expenditures that may exist in our future. With that said, I'll stand for any questions regarding operations, and I do have Mr. Stone here as well to help with that. I would just add on a side note and then on a positive note, thank you to our community for supporting our bond initiative, because those resources directly will impact the world of operations, and we're excited to have that have those resources to help us. So thank you.
Ms. Clymer, did you have questions or comments?
Just one question on slide 6, or on my presentation, slide 6, challenges within district operations. You listed the capital committee versus a defined budget. So tell me more about, are you looking to make changes with the capital committee or how it currently works, changing the structure of that, or what's the next step there?
I'll have Mr. Stone
Oh,
speak
sure.
to that. Thank you.
Ms. Clymer, thank you. As we look at last year, the way it worked, it didn't meet very often. And so Mr. Vaughn and I have dedicated monthly meetings to it to ensure we're meeting the needs a lot quicker. We could always do something emergency in the past, but we know it felt like people weren't bringing it to us quickly enough. And so we want to address it on an ongoing monthly basis. And so just revisiting that process every month will allow us to be more efficient and moving through these repairs quicker. So initially, Mr. Ensign starts with a yearly capital plan, but we know that is what we think will get us through the year, not the emergencies. And by doing it every month, we'll be able to meet those needs a lot better.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I have a general question. So I appreciate this update. We haven't gotten a lot of operational or capital updates really in the past. This audit that was done was one of the first in detail presentations that the board got. So my question just in general is, I understand the purpose of this is to give the board and the community an update as to where we are operationally. But Dr. Davidson, since you're new, or maybe Executive Director Stone, since you're both new, what is your overall assessment of our operations from a building standpoint as far as facilities goes? We passed the bond, which is great. I know some of that money is supposed to go to, or will go to, building and facilities maintenance. But overall, based on the budget that we have, the amount of resources that we have, it looks here like you're going to make some improvements. But overall, do you think we have the right pieces in place to efficiently operate, both from a budgetary standpoint? Do we have enough money? And from an operational standpoint, do we have the right people in place to be able to support our operations?
Thank you, Ms. Moran. I'm going to let Mr. Stone speak first because I'd be curious if he thinks the same thing that I think, and then I will add to his comments, okay?
Excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Coming in with the fresh lens of looking at Litchfield L in a way that's not been looked at in a long time. We know I take a position that was not in existence. Fortunately for us, though, we do have Dan Ensign, who's led a phenomenal department for many years and knows our facilities better than anybody, as he's been able to build schools as a vendor and also manage schools being built as an employee. And so that institutional knowledge that he brings to his team is incredible. When I look at the square footage and facilities that we're asking to be maintained, it is a lot for the small workforce that we have. And we continue to talk and meet regularly about how we're meeting those needs. Of course, the current focus is how do we continue to improve, looking through the lens of allowing the SFOB to replace our equipments first, right? If we've done the proper work of preventive maintenance along the way and we're at that stage, we want to attempt to use their money prior to ours. And that's really where we start with the capital part of it. And our goal is to look at over 75% of our projects that are over $5,000 through that lens first. And that's a plan that Mr. Ensign and I developed this year as kind of a target. There is a lot that can be done with it. And we know the state is continuing to look to increase that money for us. And we want to make sure we get our portion of it. We know that 8 or 9 HVAC units from July till today were replaced through SFOB funds. And that turnaround time on equipment has been a lot better. And so that is about how we continue to control our capital fund and make good choices. Moving forward, there is the conversation of, do we have enough staff to make improvements where we're at? We do know, yes, the bond dollars will allow us to tackle some major projects, but the daily living of schools does require our current staff to take care of that. And so we talk about work orders and how frequently, what's that number that it should live around, and 500 could be high at times. But because Mr. Ensign does a really good job of scheduling out preventive maintenance plans for his guys, it's always going to be a little higher than what people think, because that's a scheduled work item because of the weight of it. And so kudos to him and his team, but we will continue to prioritize this list that we got. We know we might not have always been able to do the really big things, or the Band-Aids were just to get us to a point, and we are going to be at that point here to be able to address those things appropriately and extend the lives of our building that we're in now. So, Mr. Ensign, you have anything to add to that?
Okay, this is Dr. Davidson, and I'll add just a couple more things, Ms. Moran. I think the idea of the establishment and or the strengthening of the preventative maintenance program will be powerful, because it'll allow us to, I guess, be forward thinkers in regards to the work we're doing inside operations versus always maybe, as Eric used the term, putting a Band-Aid on something. So I'm excited about that as we continue to move forward and again, have those resources and talking with Dan even today. If you were to just travel, and this is my perspective since you asked for it, but just traveling around schools, visiting our buildings, they present very well. Our staff works hard. The grounds, and when you're walking around, things are clean and they look very good, but there's often things we don't see, such as a leaky roof, such as, you know, an air conditioning that's on its last leg, things that our community wouldn't see that we know we have to spend resources on. So it's those type of things that we will continue to address as we can. But I'll use that term again that Eric used, just we're going to have to prioritize always in our current funding status, despite even our community giving us some additional resources to use.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And I will just reiterate 1,000 times over the impact of the hard work of Dan Ensign and his team. He has just been instrumental in giving us additional funding, freeing up a funding that we have by working with the SFOB and learning their system and figuring out ways to get us funding from the state when it seemed as though it was almost impossible. So thank you, Dan. I always appreciate your hard work with that.
I don't have any questions either, but I do appreciate that we got this report. It's hard to talk about this stuff because we always want to talk about academics and how the kids are doing, but it's all linked, right? If our kids are in buildings that don't have air and they're really hot in their classrooms, they can't function. They're not going to be able to focus. They're not going to be able to learn. And so all this stuff is important. And so it's important that we as a board are able to look at that big picture of what we need to do, what's the long-term plan, so that we can plan accordingly and help guide the direction that we're headed. So I appreciate that this got put together. I agree. We've never really been able to look at the big picture of this. So it's very helpful to us moving forward. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move on to the superintendent performance objective number 4, communications. This is also going to be by Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Zainaba and members of the board, community as well, and staff. This is an opportunity for me to highlight the work of Mr. Nuanez and the team, and similar to my previous presentation, kind of give the board an update as to where we are and some fine detail as to some things we want to accomplish, and then maybe where we want to go in our future. So certainly we'll be open for feedback at the end as well. Again, Sam is here with us to answer questions as they come up and help me put this together. Similar to the last presentation as well, this area of communications falls and touches every single quadrant of our strategic plan. Let's talk about the current reality. Our school district, Litchfield Elementary School District number 79, and just, you know, just to highlight to the community, you will hear and see that number being used more and more often, only because there are other LESDs, not just in the West Valley, but across our state. So we just want to make certain we know who we're talking about. We've been around for over 108 years. The communications department strategically was done in the year 1617. So Mr. Nuanez and his team of one right now are a pretty new area for LESD 79. You can see just last year, the board approved a classified FTE or full-time equivalents just to grow that area. And just wanted to highlight that Sam and our unit of communications is always in a continuous state of improvement. Some existing communication measures, some things that our community and our board sees, and certainly you can look at this item here and you know what's out there and how to grab that information from our websites, the use of social media, working inside applications such as Nextdoor even, making certain that we have digital tools that are strong and good. The board knows we're transitioning more and more into Parent Square, leaving in touch. Mr. Nuanez works closely with our team as a whole on emergency and crisis communications, and then spends a lot of time just trying to build our brand inside the community from behalf of Rotary, Kiwanis Club, Southwest Chamber, faith-based partners, and so forth. Just some key words about existing communication measures. We're really trying to be storytellers, share the Litchfield Elementary School District story, in my opinion, then gaining trust from our community and partners. The logo is important to us, what we represent. It means something in our community, and I believe the vote for our bond demonstrates that. So continuing on, some successful communication practices that we have in place. Just last year as well, we worked closely, and there was an attachment, if the board had a chance to see it, where an auditor or a firm came in to provide insight to LESD 79 on its communications plan. And so what I wanted to highlight for the board tonight and for our community is there is 3 areas of focus. Well, I guess it's actually, when you look at it, it looks at 5 different areas of focus, but around 3 main areas: crisis communications and emergency preparedness, community engagement and partnerships, transparency and accountability. This plan was put together by the Center for Effective School Operations. And in regards to 3 and 11, not just a communications team perspective, but we do have an incident flow chart with clear practices for communication in regards to threats, Department of Child Safety calls, Title IX, public complaints, etc. So I know Dr. Doozy and team have weighed in heavily on that particular flow chart. And also, we've worked hard in the areas of number 4 and 11. Certainly, from a communications perspective, I believe the board has seen we want nothing other than to be transparent and ensuring that the board is getting the information that they need in a timely manner, and also that our community has a chance to connect with me as new superintendent, and also that our administrators have just-in-time information to help them be successful in their job. We have an item that we call Linking Litchfield Administrators, and we push that out every week, where we really ask our admin team to consider 3 areas. Do they need to know just some information? Are we asking them to share that information with someone? And then are there any actions associated with that? So we really try to guide them and try to streamline that communication process where all of our departments are putting information that's important for our administrators out there. From a two-way community connectedness perspective, and often you'll hear me say this is something we're trying to do, is just capture the voice of both our internal and external stakeholders. We have our Superintendent's Advisory Council, our cabinet team, where we're always just sharing information and problem solving. We have our Administrative Council and our Leads Group. We most recently, and I know you'll be seeing this in a Friday report soon and in a future presentation, the implementation of surveys across a variety of stakeholder groups to gather the voice of our Litchfield community. And certainly, Dr. Doozy and team are always communicating with our principals, one-on-one or in small groups, leading PLC groups as administrators, again, just having that back and forth sharing of communication. Some additional two-way community connectedness. Some things that we would like to further explore as part of my plan as superintendent, to continue to develop our business partners, inviting them to breakfast, finding ways where they can directly impact the work inside our classroom, considering a faith-based council group, really trying to capture the voice of all of our community leaders out in our Litchfield community, as well as working on our volunteer program. And one of the ways we could do that is partnering with School Connect. Many of you are familiar with School Connect from Love Our Day Schools. Love our school. Yeah, I said that backwards. Love Our Day School. That sounds fun too. Love Our Schools Day, but also their school cafe model. So that's something we'd like to do. As we think about our future from a communications perspective, we know that public education, we're in a competitive marketplace. We want to not only earn the trust of our community, but we want our families and our kids to be successful here. And we want those that aren't here with us to come back. So please note, part of this piece, and as we think about our future, is to really consider what is it we need to do to ensure that our families and those that have left us want to be with us. And I think part of that is developing the communications team. Right now, you saw just last year, we added that FTE for the classified staff member. We would at least want our board to consider a reclassification of that position, similar to in human resources, where we have a communications generalist, where we have someone who comes to us with some additional background inside marketing communications to support Mr. Nuanez and really enhance the work that's already happening in our district. With that said, I will stand for any questions. Sam is here with me, but thank you for giving us the chance to present tonight.
Clymer.
Thank you very much. As being a communications professional for my entire career, I know that this is one of those areas that no matter how hard you work and no matter how much success you achieve, you will never be done, right? There's always more communication. There's always more that we can say, do, and try to get engagement. So with that in mind, I think just to sort of sum up what I think that you have said, which makes a lot of sense to me because we've been trying to get here for a while, sort of three parts to this communications thread. We have our internal and our external communications from the district. We have internal stakeholders that are extremely important. So to your point, in pushing out messages to campus leaders and teachers, staff, et cetera, from the district office is important. So they feel like they know what's going on. No one wants to be asked a question or, approached and they don't have the answer. And so getting people in the know makes them feel, appreciated and valued and more powerful in their job. External communications, having been a parent and also a community member that supports the district, we want to know what's going on, right? We want to know what the district is doing and what initiatives are on the table and what budget needs are there, all of those types of things. So that external communication. And then the campus level communications, obviously from teachers, principals, that kind of thing, that have always happened. I think one thing that what we need to work on now is that we're starting some new initiatives, we're continuing some old ones, is work on consistency and make sure that what we start, we are going to continue. So every campus offers, it's not going to be the exact same piece of communication, but it's some communication, right? Whether it comes from the principal every week or teachers or however they want to design it, that something is coming from the campus level. I know we're doing that from the district every month, every quarter, that kind of thing. So to me, I think it's just consistency, making sure that parents and community members know if they have a question, where to go. They know they're going to get that constant sort of drip of information. So if something's important going on, they're going to hear about it from us versus some other party who isn't going to tell our story the same way that we will. I think, we have found we are the best storytellers for our own story, our student stories and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, great job. Thank you for the presentation.
Ms. Moran.
Yeah, I also appreciate the presentation in general. I think for me, a couple of highlights are the community partnerships. We've had community partnerships in the past, but I'm really happy to see that we're working on not only strengthening those partnerships, but also expanding those and making sure that we are spreading the love, if you will, to various members of the district administration so that multiple people can have and foster those relationships with our community partners. So I think that's an excellent step in the right direction. One thing when it comes to communication in general, and Dr. Davidson and Executive Director Nuanez, you are both relatively new to the district, but one of the things that this board has been asking for a few years now is texting. And I understand we're rolling out Parent Square, and I want to echo what Board Member Clymer said, which is, for me, my top priority is a rollout and implementation of Parent Square with consistency. So our parents don't know what they don't know. So you could ask a parent, hey, are you getting the communications that you need? And if they don't know they're not getting something, they're going to think they've got all of it. And I think when you look at different school sites, you will see a wide variety in communication, either the timing of the communication, the types of information that are included in there. So I'd like to see some sort of audit or best practices or some way to ensure that all of our parents are getting the information and communication, not just the report cards. I know we send those out, but the fun stuff about campuses, the additional programs that we might be offering to our students and our families to make sure that they are involved or as involved as they want to be. So I also agree with Board Member Clymer that at the district level, I think we've made great strides in our communication, and I personally as a parent appreciate that. But I think kind of our next thing to work on that I don't see really in this presentation would be our school site communications and that consistency. So I'd love to see that worked into this as well going forward. But I appreciate the strides that we've made, and I would be happy to consider the additional changes that you'd like in the staffing to potentially bring on even more improvements to this area.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. And just Sam and I are both nodding. We realize the importance of consistent communications across all of our campuses. And he and I can also, once his team is built and continues to get strengthened, work alongside Dr. Doozy and her role in supporting our school leaders. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I don't have any questions. I will say kudos to the team. I do think that communication at a district level has improved dramatically. And I think Parent Square is a great addition. I do like it as a parent, and I do get text message, email, and an alert on my Parent Square whenever there's a message sent out. So, I mean, I get it all three at the same time. But I agree with Ms. Moran about the communication at schools. And I think that's kind of what us as a board have really wanted to focus on, is that consistency. I feel like that's the theme for us in like everything, right? Is that we want to see consistency. We want to see consistency in all the things that they're doing, but in this communications, because there are some schools that are doing really great. They send out weekly emails to their parents. They know what's going on. They get all the stuff from their teachers. They get the stuff from the district, and it feels like they know. Plus, they also tend to be the schools that have the much more active parent groups, it seems like, and those parent groups are also communicating. So they're getting all that information. And then you've got campuses that don't have as active a parent group, and they're not sending stuff out as regularly as some of our other campuses. And it feels like they're not knowing what's going on as well as the schools that are communicating more often. So I would like us to see as a district to come up with like, here's our baseline of expectation. I would also like to see text messages maybe used more, but if everybody gets on Parent Square, maybe that's the thing we got to do, right? Is just get more parents to sign up for Parent Square, and then they'll get those alerts. But overall, thank you so much. And thank you to the team, because I do see an improvement from a district level for sure.
Thank you, Ms. Adam. And I think Mr. Nuanez, you're going to speak to the texting piece.
Yeah, President Zaidama, yes, thank you for your question and stuff. Just real quick, as far as that, yes, we are striving for consistency across the board. Some of our, as we did take our strategic plan from CISO, that is part of our implementation plan moving forward, is to create that consistency through a branding that is consistent, still allowing certain schools to have a certain level of individuality amongst their schools, but have an overarching brand that says Litchfield Elementary School District with best practices. And we will start, as we move forward and the team can grow, we'll be able to expand and give those training sessions as well. We're also expanding our training sessions, not only with our teachers and our school administrators on Parent Square, to make sure that they are solid with the use of that platform. And then from there, the next step is, once they're good with it, is to then start do outreach and create training and start pushing the training modules out to the parents. And then that way we can close the loop on that. Once we get that solidified, Board Member Moran, there is where the texting part will become more prevalent in the communication process.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, the boundaries discussion. This is going to be by Executive Director Stone and Executive Director Benjamin. We're all very eager to see this presentation you have for us.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board. We are excited to bring some of the updates, although it might not be as much information as you're hoping. We do have a great plan and we have been working really hard with a committee. So Executive Director Stone and I have been co-chairing all of this work together and have spent long hours with lots of grid codes. The boundary committee does focus on strategic plan and it fits our alignment to student success, people, service, and finances and resource. It is recommended that this is what's best for kids because we know that we have facilities that are overcrowded on one side of the district and we don't have enough students on the east side in some other places. So allocating facilities, allocating space for students, all those things are really important to make sure that we have the most appropriate and best places for our kids to come to learn each day.
As you know, we started with applied economics back in April to gather this data and kind of set forth this path. We want to continue to see capacity become equitable across the district. And we know the growth that's come in on the west side is what is impacting this greatly. We know the declining enrollment on the east side is attributing this, the presence of charter schools and students aging out. And also what we heard yesterday from the demographer was the ESSA vouchers are now impacting the transition years grades. So kindergarten, 6th grade and 9th grade, as more people have found ways to apply and earn that, they are choosing homeschool or something different that is not charter or public. Of course, district policy guides this, right? Requires our families that are impacted by this possible boundary change are notified to attend and participate in discussion around the change. Per policy, families should have a minimum of 10 days notice. Once the adoption change has been approved in January, we will communicate out to the families of the upcoming changes, and all of that will join on our website. So we have a 90-day window before school would start the next time.
All right, so the boundary changes are working to solve a problem. We have very little capacity for growth on the west side of the district. That's at Verrado Elementary, Verrado Heritage, Verrado Middle, and Belen Soto. We have capacity available at schools on the east side, and we are also seeking innovative ideas to bring students back who have left our district. We know that that number is somewhere around 3,000 students who live within our boundaries and choose to either go to a charter or to a different place or space. So we want to make sure that we are thinking innovatively and outside the box. Our committee members, we have 13 parents, 4 certified staff. We have 3 classified staff members. We have a principal, 2 directors, and Agua Fria representation as well. And in those numbers, we also have some of our department directors. We have our assessment director. We have student information. We have our maintenance and facility. So lots of people are a part of this because we know that it takes a whole team to be able to be innovative and making sure that we're thinking of all things about what's best for kids. We also have invited our principals, director of safety, transportation. They come to all of our meetings. They are not necessarily a voting member on the committee, but they are actively listening and making sure that they're getting the information out to their communities. Our timeline for this work, what we've already completed after we presented at at the board meeting in September, the very next day we sent out an email seeking for people who were interested in this work. Our first meeting was on October 4th. We had our second meeting October 19th, and our third meeting was November 2nd. On the 4th, it was really laying that foundation for why are we meeting? What's this going to solve? October 19th was if the bond does not pass, what does this mean? And we were looking at scenarios for if we don't have this bond, what are we going to do? And then on November 2nd, we had the opportunity to look at what if the bond does pass? What does this mean? And what are some things that we're going to do if that's the case? We do have some future committee work coming up. We have a meeting tomorrow at November 15th. We also have tentatively our last meeting is December 6th. We did keep it open in case we needed to add additional meetings that we could do that. At the next meeting, it's going to be discussion around transportation, free and reduced numbers, special education, student achievement, and our ELD programming. Again, we're making sure that we are thinking of all things when we're looking at these boundary changes, because we know that it impacts lots of people, lots of families, and our staff. On November 27th, we are going to have 2 community engagement nights that night where families can come and learn about what we are considering and what we're offering. There will be a community engagement night here at Litchfield Elementary in the cafeteria. We'll also have one open on the west side at support services. So it will be at 6 p.m. We are getting that information out to families this week, so that they can come. And that night will really be listening and hearing the presentations and the information and understanding the background and the why. Why do we need to do this? Because that's a big thing when we are asking your child to go to a different school. Why are they having to leave their community? So we want them to have an understanding and a big picture. On November 28th, the very next evening, we have a study session that night, and we will be bringing we're actually going to be doing a public hearing. We just decided that today. So there will be a public hearing at 5:30, I believe, and we will get that information out to parents as well. So 5:30 to 6:30 will be public information for the boundaries where parents can share how they feel about that, pros and cons. December 12th, we will bring back the presentation for the first viewing for our board to be able to see and hear all of the recommendations and any additional changes that may have needed to be made after we get the community engagement and after we have the public hearing. We are hoping that January is the very latest that we can make these decisions, because there's a lot of things that impact the next steps, what for open enrollment, for staffing. There's lots of things that we need to start moving on immediately. So January, we will be bringing the final presentation back for the governing board.
So the things that we're thinking about or still thinking about and shared is, how do we continue to build our schools to that 90% capacity? The movement to get us there is the most important piece, and that's why we know it will impact so many different schools. We want to create clear understanding of academic achievement and the impact changes that we make will have on those schools due to the boundary moves. Of course, the free and reduced lunch numbers and the EL impacts are all a portion of what we continue to look at to make sure we're not offsetting schools from what they're currently doing. We would hate to move enough kids that might change someone's free and reduced number or their title budget, right? We want to make sure that we've looked at all those options with our committee members and we have that clear understanding as we move forward. They came up with a ton of phenomenal ideas, right? I'm not going to read the whole list here, but the innovative ideas from the committee were through the roof. And this is exactly the thinking that we were talking about from the very beginning, right? We know, as Mrs. Benjamin mentioned, up to 3,000 students are choosing someone else. And it's time for us to take our students back. We know that there's options for us now that the bond has passed, and we have some leeway to do some things with that. So a lot of great things came from it. Some that you immediately go, no way, right? Or some you go, wow, that's really awesome, and we got to dig into that. So our committee's been able to do that. Cabinet has been able to do that. And then of course, those director experts, as we sit with them, have chimed in with their pieces as well. This is kind of where we've landed with the work ideas as we talk about that choice for families, adding an additional K-8 on the east side. We know parents like to have kids at the same school through kindergarten and 8th grade. It's kind of a norm across the state, as there are twice as many K-8 schools in the state of Arizona as there are 5th through 8th grade school combos combined. Of course, the sites that could house that, you can see are Palm Valley, Litchfield, L. Thomas Heck. Of course, that was done with Mr. Ensign's guidance on what school could actually handle that movement. If we had to create softball, baseball fields, or bring in smaller playground equipment, those types of things. Of course, adding a K-8 boundaryless school to be a magnet leadership academy. That would be a full open enrollment school that allows us to attract those charter school students and families back because we know we can do it better than they can. So the schools that could handle that are similar: L. Thomas Heck, Litchfield Elementary School, and the Rancho Santa Fe. We also know that's kind of the far east side of our boundaries, located near other charter schools, to kind of put that flag of, hey, it's time to return. And then finally, creating additional options in the Verrado community. Combining Verrado Elementary School and Verrado Middle School into one Verrado was talked about. And of course, Verrado Heritage possibly becoming a K-5 and sending all their junior high kids along with Scott Libby and Verrado L to Verrado Middle and making Verrado Middle the middle school of the Verrado community.
All right, so this is some information I've already kind of shared, but November 27th from 6 to 7:30, we will have community input, both the east and the west side. Information will go out this week for that for our parents. November 28th is not on here because that was just decided today, but that will be a public hearing opportunity for parents to share with the board as well as with our admin cabinet, any ideas or thoughts that they have around the boundaries. And then December 12th, we will bring our recommendations for the board to review those initial boundary options. Do you have any questions for us?
Ms. Clymer?
I have so many questions, but not appropriate for tonight. I guess really the broader sort of umbrella question is, what is the November 28th, I think, study session? What does that look like for us as a board? I mean, if we're not being presented the first option until December 12th, what is the purpose of the 28th? And how, like, I guess what I'm wondering is when is the meeting where like all of the details come out? Like we have to dig into this and sort of figure out what does this look like? Is that the 28th or is that the 12th?
So on November 27th, we'll be sharing the options that will be presented to you. The 28th by policy requires that we have a public hearing available for families. So they can come on the 27th, they can learn about it, and then they could come on the 28th and speak to the board about their thoughts and ideas. We will also be gathering their feedback on the 27th. We will do that whether it's through a QR code or whether it's through paper pencil. We'll have opportunities for them, but it won't be public speaking in front of you.
Sure.
And so if they want to do that, we need to make sure that we have that available to them. So that's really what it's going to look like, is that opportunity to share with you their thoughts and ideas. We had thought about presenting that same night and we still can. We wanted to wait until the 12th so that we could take feedback from that time and from the 27th and determine, is there anything else we need to tweak or change before we present our final option? So that was where we're at. However, we are flexible with whatever you decide you would rather have.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I'm just wondering if will the board be presented with what you are going to present on the 27th, or is what we see here the options that they're going to be given?
Everything that will be presented on the 27th will also be on our webpage. So by policy, we do need to have the maps up. We need to discuss the schools that could be impacted. So all of that will be available to our community and to our schools and to our families.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have them covered. I guess what I'm worried about is us up here. We're getting parent feedback on things we haven't seen yet. So it doesn't really help me all that much to get feedback on proposals that I don't know what it looks like. So that's what I'm saying. If it's available, publicly available, then I will just look at whatever's presented on the 27th so that when they come on the 28th and have comment and feedback, we at least have some idea of what they're commenting on, I guess is what I mean by that.
It's a great point. So we can do two things. We can definitely put it in a Friday update before so that you have that opportunity to see it. It will be on the webpage. The other thing is we could see if you coming to the 27th, or we could also present it on the 28th as well. We could do it twice. It's two scenarios is what we're anticipating bringing. So it would not be that difficult for us to present before the public hearing or at the beginning of it.
Yeah. I say a Friday update or just send it to us on the 27th, whatever it is, just so that we can review, just so we have the same information that they're given. That way we can look it over. Okay. And then, so the 12th is our regular meeting. We'll have the full presentation. I know I will already have questions, and I know tonight is not the right time, but I'm just putting them out there to see when would be the appropriate time. So, as we talk about, changing a school from a K-5 to a K-8, while I understand the facility perspective on that, it makes perfect sense to me. What I do want to know is, what is that effect on children, right? Is it better to have a K-8 school? I mean, you say that, lots of schools in Arizona are K-8. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Are they doing that because it's cheaper, because it's easier to maintain? Are they doing it because that's what's actually best for students? Is there research that shows that K-8 makes sense? Or are we just saying we got too many kids, so now we got to put them all together? And maybe I'm just being really blunt about it, but I mean, I know you guys have thought about that. So I'm just asking for that same, piece of information. Also, in terms of, I know you're talking about transportation, food service. I mean, all of these kinds of things that are going to change. Will that all be part of that presentation on the 12th too? So if we are going to something like a magnet school or something like that, where if transportation is different than a regular school, we will know that during that proposal phase. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Dr. Davidson, did you have something you wanted to step in with?
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Clymer, and I'm just seeking clarification. I want, on behalf of your questioning, Ms. Benjamin and Mr. Stone, the 27th of November is when we will present information to the community on the east and west side, get their feedback. Where you'll be taking that information as well as the information from your other committee meetings to bring to the board on the 28th. So the 28th will be the kind of culminating gathering of input minus what our parents bring us that same evening. But that's where you will present to the board like some pretty honed in options, correct? So we're going to seek feedback, share information. The board will have as much of that presentation prior to that meeting so they could be prepared to speak to things. But that was our intent, right? So that they will have the 28th and we'll have it from that point into December 12th, our next meeting, to process it, ask questions, perhaps even lead us in a different direction if necessary. But I just want to make sure I'm tracking alongside everybody.
So we're not planning on doing the entire presentation that evening, but we can. That won't be a problem at all. We were presuming that the 27th and then along with all of the information that they have on the website would be enough, but we do not have a problem presenting again the same information if people wanted to hear it again and also for your input.
Can I
Okay.
make a suggestion?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I feel like it's possible, given the agenda on the 28th already, which is not huge, but still there's things on there, right? That we may want to have a separate study session just for this before we make decisions. I personally, sorry to jump in before letting Ms. Moran talk, feel like we as a board need to have more time to do our due diligence in making this decision. And I know that you guys are doing all this work and that's great, but we need to be able to really be able to dive in and digest all that information and really put it together what that looks like for us before we're asked to make some very major decisions. And I know that when they did boundary changes, pretty big boundary changes in the past, which I feel are going to be less changing than these were, there was a lot more study sessions that happened. So I'd like to have us add another one before we vote on that. Ms. Moran,
In December?
I don't.
In December, you mean?
Maybe,
After the meeting, the first meeting?
maybe, yes.
Okay.
I mean, December is very full, but we can figure that out as far as the timing goes of that. But I would just feel more comfortable if we were able to do that. I mean, I don't know what the rest of you think about that, but.
No, I'll let Kim talk as well, but no, I'm with you. I mean, like I said, I don't care how we get the information. I just want to make sure that we have it so that, we have time to, because we'll have questions and all of that. And I know that as parents are talking to us and sharing, they're going to want multiple options to do that. And as they learn and dissect all the proposals, they're going to have, they weren't going to want multiple times to talk. So I'm in favor of adding another session if it means that we can help clarify or ask questions, things like that. I think it's great.
Did you have any more questions before I move to Ms. Moran?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Moran, I'm sorry I jumped in before you'd spoke.
No worries. I will address the timing of this, I guess, first. Yeah, I mean, offering one night on the 27th for parents to provide feedback. I know that emails are open and all of that, and saying that it's on the website, that does not feel like a genuine request for public input and feedback. So I would like to see the full presentation done for as many parents as possible on the 27th, and then also done again on the 28th for the board and for any additional parents who might not be able to attend on the one date that we're offering this. This is a massive decision, and I agree with President Zeidema that we've got to have buy-in on this. I mean, not everyone's going to agree, but we have got to have not only the committee's recommendation and the district admin's recommendations, but the board has got to be in agreement on this. And we've got to be 100% behind these changes because it's going to impact a large number of people. So I also, in addition, would like to see the data behind the guiding components. So the data behind the 90% capacity, that one should be pretty easy, but I want to see the data behind the academic achievement, the free and reduced lunch numbers, and the EL impacts, because I don't know that I'm not willing to remove a Title I status from a school if that is what's best for students. So I want to see what President Zeidema asked for, which is behind every single one of these recommendations. I want to see how and why and the data behind this is the best choice for student success. So part of that is going to be the feedback. And we know there are some parents that aren't going to be happy about the boundary changes. There are going to be some parents who are very happy about the boundary changes or whatever this is going to look like. But we've got to give parents more than a day or two's notice on digesting this, just like we're asking for more time on that. So I agree with President Zeidema that I would like to see us have another opportunity for public comment and feedback prior to voting on the 12th. And I understand this is a difficult time because it's holiday season. And even when I'm looking at my own calendar for the 27th and 28th to say, yeah, the information is going to be available, you know, a week from now on our website is tough. That's holiday time. That's family time. So that's tough even for me as a board member. So I can only imagine for our parents, it would be even more difficult. So that's what I would like to see from my decision standpoint, in addition to just the general information that's being presented. I do really appreciate the committee's hard work, and I look forward to hearing and seeing the detail behind the recommendations. But I just want to make sure that as a board member, we do not feel rushed in this decision. And to me, the 2-week time frame seems rushed only because I don't even know. I mean, I see what the potential options are here, but like President Zeidema said, I really want us to be able to do our due diligence before we make this decision.
President Zeidema, Board Member Rand, there is no vote on December 12th. We know this is extremely big. We don't have a January date board meeting yet, just because we've not approved that calendar. But we know this is going to take at least 2 times through the board to make sure we've done the diligence. So just to kind of settle that, there is no vote on the 12th of December. That is the first read for you guys after all that data collection. And we'll make sure we have that information for you. It is a busy time for everybody, and we don't want you spending winter break flipping through pages of numbers. So once we solidify that January or the 2024 board meeting calendar, we'll have that date on there for you guys.
Okay, so I'm with Ms. Moran in that I would like the data. So I'd like some information if you can get us on schools that are K-8s versus K-5 and middle school and how we see those students do, because I would like to see that when we're deciding if we're going to make more K-8s or if we're going to go back to our traditional K-5 and 6 through 8 models. Also, I'm not opposed to moving quickly and having more meetings in a quicker time. I'm okay with doing that if that's what we need to do. I just want to make sure that the board has the time to be able to go through all the material. However that works out, right? If we need to spread it out a little, but I do also understand the time crunch of trying to get this done for budget, because we're also trying to do the budget, and this is going to impact that drastically. So whatever we need to do to make sure that we have all the information we need, we're able to ask all the questions that we need. And I think that's important for us to do a lot of that in public as possible for the community to hear the answers, because we're at the end of the day going to make decisions that people are not happy with. And I want them to see that we really did dig in and we really thought about all the options and what was best and why before we make that decision, so that we can feel good about it when we go to the community and say, yes, this was the right thing to do. And we understand why you may or may not like it, but we can support it because of these reasons. So I look forward to our next meetings. Did you have another thing, Ms. Clymer?
No, I was just going to offer some suggestions. I mean, if the meeting on the 12th is the regular meeting where we'll have a further presentation of the proposal, we have the following week, potentially that Tuesday, which we could do a study session, or after we came back that first week in January, potentially Wednesday or Thursday, or any Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, it's just New Year's Day is the first, so you might not want to do it the next. But anyway, I think there's at least a couple of days there if we wanted to fit in another, again, it's literally bookending the holiday, but if we're going to come back, and I know we don't have the meeting scheduled yet, but it will most likely be January 9th unless we decide to, upend the whole governing board calendar. So yeah, I mean, that first week of January is really the last opportunity. So, I mean, I think probably, 19th or 20th and or that first week of January would be the only other time that we could fit in with giving parents a good choice of when they could come that wasn't over the holidays.
I agree. I think that we don't have two board members here tonight, so I don't want to kind of hammer that exact schedule out, and we can kind of work that out through our board secretary, figuring out the best date for that. But I think everybody's pretty much in agreement. We'd like to have a study session that's just devoted to this. And if we need to make it a special meeting so people can have public comment, I'm fine with that. So, did you have any more questions or comments, Ms. Moran?
No, thank you.
Thank you again. I feel like we're throwing a lot at you, and I appreciate all the work you're doing. I think it's incredible that everybody's diving in and really thinking about these unique and different options that we've never thought about before. I think that's a good sign that they are taking this serious and that they're willing to make some hard calls. And I hope they'll come out and let people know, like, we are the people that have been here working on this behind the scenes, so that they understand that they are real people that are really there every day with our kids, and it will impact them as well. So I think that's a good thing. But thank you so much for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a lot of first reads on changes we have to make to our policy. So we're just going to kind of move through those as quickly as possible. The first one is, oh no, I'm sorry. That's not what we're doing next. I lied. We're going to talk about school and district letter grades. That's way better. We're going to let that be led by Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Zeidelman. And I was really excited to jump into first read of policy, but this agenda item is way more exciting, and I didn't have a big slideshow. Certainly, we provided some content in the public area of board docs, but what a celebration and opportunity just to give a big round of applause to our student body, to our leaders, some of those that are in the room today, to our staff that not only do their work day in, day out, to include teachers and our classified team, but really a whole collective effort on ensuring that Litchfield Elementary School District earned an A, maintains that A, and through different initiatives, different uses of curriculum. But bottom line, we had great success as the Arizona Department of Education has come out and shared 14 A's, 1 B school who improved from a C. So we're seeing that growth, and just a big celebration for our community. So I just want to stand here and I can answer questions. Certainly some of our team members who were here last year can speak to the work, but wanted to provide the board an opportunity just to hear from us how grateful we are, but also how excited we are to have this foundation and moving forward. So I'll be quiet because I could probably talk all night about the success of our kids. So thank you.
Ms. Clymer, did you have comments or questions?
I agree with you. I feel like I could go on all night about this because I think that we have been working really hard since the pandemic and through a lot of sort of social and emotional issues with our students to get them back on track and in a learning environment that is safe and comfortable for all children, but also rigorous and demanding and pushing them to where we think that they need to go. And I think this shows that we found a lot of success in that effort and that endeavor. And can we be better? Of course. Do we want to be better? Every single day, but it also is worthwhile to just stop and enjoy the moment that you've earned. And all of the students and all of their parents support all of our principals and our staff members and our teachers, and everybody has worked so hard to get here, and seeing our name at the top of the list just makes me really proud to sit up here and go through first read of policies and all of the sort of boring policy stuff that governing board members do that is extremely important and supports all the academic work that's being done. But this is really what fills my cup, is seeing students successful, seeing, parents be proud of their kids, being proud of their success, the school they go to, the community they live in. And I know it has been, there have been many days where I have felt sitting up here hearing from community members and parents that Litchfield isn't the place that they wanted it to be. And I think the proof is in the pudding. Litchfield is where everybody should want to be. There's very few names above us on that list. So I think that we need to continue to work hard, but just stop and smell the roses for a quick second. So thank you and congratulations to everybody.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, at this point in the agenda, I'm just going to echo what Board Member Clymer said and, congratulate everyone. I do have some additional comments I'd like to make in my board report regarding our letter grades. But for now, I will just say, yeah, congratulations. And we are indisputably one of the top districts in our state. In the past, we've been criticized for winning a popularity contests or that sort of thing. But these letter grades are given to schools or awarded to schools from the Arizona State Board of Education. So if you have a problem with these letter grades, take it up with them. But for us, we are going to celebrate these wins and let the good times roll.
Actually, before you close out, I'm sorry, I have one more.
Yeah.
I have one more thing because I forgot. Principal Acosta is behind you, Dr. Davidson, and I can't see her very well because I think she's trying to hide behind you. But I just want to say congratulations to all of your students. The full growth points, one of only two campuses in our district to receive that is amazing. You should be very proud of yourself and your students. ELL readiness, across the board, you did amazing. And I would love to call out every single campus. I just see you sitting here. And so I wanted to say that I hope that you know how much we support your efforts. And, now you're locked in. We know you can do it. So, you have raised expectations for your Rattlers. And I know that their parents really appreciate that. So thank you for your hard work.
So I'm just going to echo all of my other board members. This is an incredible time to be part of the Litchfield Elementary School District because we are amazing. And we up here as the board, most of us, talk about how great we are all the time. But this is the proof. So to all the people that are constantly coming at us saying, you're failing kids, we are not failing kids. We are an A district. We have 14 A schools and one B school that rose from a C and was almost an A. That is proof that we are doing great for our students, that we are doing exactly what they need above and beyond every single day to make sure that they are successful. And that's because we have amazing educators in all our classrooms that pour their heart and soul into what they do every single day to make sure our kids are growing and learning. It's because we have incredible principals and administrative teams on our campuses that support their teachers and make sure that they know that they have what they need to be the phenomenal educators that they are. And we have a district admin team that is supporting all of them every single day. And I have to mention that I am thankful to our previous administration that was here. A lot of this also goes to them, and we are appreciative of all the work that they did. We know that our teachers and our principals and our staff could not have done it without them. So thank you to every single person that's been a part of this, because this is everyone's victory. This is everyone's celebration. And Dr. Davidson said it at a school tour recently, you're not the Super Bowl winner. You're not the Super Bowl MVP for a day. It's for a year. So we are going to celebrate this all year long because that's what we earned by getting this A. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have to move on to the boring reading of policy stuff, but that is what we're up here to do. So we'll let Dr. Davidson start that.
Thank you, Governing Board and Madam President. We have a series of things that either myself, Dr. Doozy, or Ms. Benjamin will present as first reads. Certainly you can ask questions as we go through them, but they are all based on changes to law. So please note that this evening. The first one we have on there is policy BCB. This particular policy allows a school district to employ a governing board member during the time in which the preceding 2 years in which they are in the position. if a board member is needing to serve in direct supports to students, we could do that now per policy BCB. Do you want, President Adam, do you want me to pause after each one or just continue?
Do you want him to just continue, Ms. Clymer? How about you, Ms. Moran? Is there any one in particular that you want him to stop at? Are you good for him to just work through them?
I am good for him to just go, and if I need to interject, I will.
Sounds great.
Perfect, thank you. Next in line is policy BDA, Board Organizational Meeting. This law allows us to ensure that the governing board will meet sometime in January to establish the calendar for meetings and so forth, and it got rid of the timeline between January 1 and January 15th. Next is policy BE, School Board Meetings. And this is to ensure that the governing board, or in this case, our team, provides a sufficient amount of seating to accommodate the attendance of all persons who want to come. As I look around here, I think we do a great job in making certain there's enough space. Now, when Eric and Jen do our boundary committee, we might have to be at Cardinal Stadium. We'll see. But
Yeah, I was about to say, come November 28th, we may have to make some adjustments.
But for now, we're good. And we'll certainly be mindful of that one. Next in line is policy BEDA, notification of board meetings. This one is to ensure, in this case, Ms. Contra and I, that we provide the time and location of said board meetings or study sessions or executive sessions and so forth. So we'll continue to do that. And lastly, on my side is policy BEDB, agenda, very similar to policy BE, where we again have to ensure there is a time and place listed as part of our notice of the meeting. So thank you. And those are my portions of first reads. I'll turn over to Dr. Doozy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President and governing board members, community. I am here to preview the changes to policy based on the recent law changes. The first policy that we'd like to have you review is in regards to EBC, which is how our emergency operation procedures respond to students with disabilities. We already knew this law was coming and we've already done some really proactive steps, but definitely need to get that policy in place. The next policy is JFABDA, which is the admission of students in foster care. And this particular policy has changed. It has given some timelines for school districts to follow when students are entered into foster care, as well as covering how we secure records and don't delay their ability to get registered or to remain in their main school of origin before being placed in foster care. And then lastly, it also gives us policy of what we should follow to make sure that these kiddos have proper transportation. Then we also have a policy of JK, JKD, JKE, and I'm going to mesh all those together because they're all the same changes as you look at your documents there. And it specifically is speaking to K through 4, students under 7 can be expelled or long-term suspended for weapons at school, as well as can be suspended for aggravated circumstances for 2 days in a row and with no more than 10 days in a school year. So those changes are reflected in JK, JKD, and JKE. And then lastly, I have policy JLH and JRCA-R, which is a regulation. And what this does is it allows a timeline. It actually extends the timeline for students that have withdrawn and haven't been enrolled in a new school system.
Can I have you pause just a moment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you say the name of the policy again? You had JK, a JKE. What was the next one?
I'm sorry, JLH. Oh, we don't. Okay,
We don't have that.
they're highlighted, and I studied and prepared. but
That's
I'll
okay. We're
save
gonna
that for next time.
pause on that.
Okay.
And it's gonna be on the next agenda. So
Okay.
I think you're done and we're gonna move on to.
Okay.
We are paying attention though. I mean,
Thank you.
I do have one question though,
Sure.
before you go, on JKE. I know that we are also doing, the discipline matrix and rubric and all of that stuff. So I know that's separate, but I just wanted to ask here in the, what is this? JKE in the expulsion, it says it's now required for a student with a firearm. Is that requirement new for the
K2 or?
It has always been part of our aggravated circumstances for a suspension, long-term suspension or expulsion, but it's specifically now listed under the exception. So they basically just moved the verbiage to a new location. So,
Okay.
but yes, we've always been able to enact discipline based on a firearm at school. Yes, ma'am, no matter what age.
Right, but I'm saying it says expulsion is required. That seems pretty specific to me, whereas before I thought long-term suspension was an option.
Yeah, for firearms at school, expulsion.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Good evening again. I am sharing policy IHA. This is a part of our K3 literacy, and basically it's just saying that we can add a literacy coach or literacy specialist as part of our move on when reading or our dyslexia. We already do this, so we are in compliance.
Awesome.
Okay. That's all for the policy reads, first reads. We will have a few more first reads next meeting and then second reads on the other ones. We're going to move on to the fiscal year 2025 budget context and timeline. This is going to be by our CFO, Vaughn. And I'm very excited that this is not a 43 slide presentation. I still think it's going to be a great conversation.
And now that Dr. Doozy has made sure you all are still paying attention, just stick with me a little while longer. We'll get you out of here. All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to discuss the budget timeline and context for fiscal year 2025. It's crazy that we are already talking about 2025, but tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance and funding. Tonight, we will review a couple of areas we're focused on for the fiscal year 2025 budget. This includes addressing the expiration of the ESSER III grant. We will also discuss positions that may be currently supported by other funds, but should be pulled into M&O for the coming year. We will also preview where we ended last year and take a detailed look of what that spending looked like to provide some context of our starting point, as well as what we're seeing at the state level in terms of budget. During this year, we will be spending $4 million of ESSER III funds to finish out the grant. Our current estimates are that 2.4 million of it will be salaries and benefits, primarily the math specialists, math aides, behavior technicians, and district math coach, and security guards at our 2 Title I middle schools. The remainder of the position costs are due to the district honoring staffing that would have been eliminated due to changes in student enrollment under our current staffing standards, but were maintained using ESSER funds. The remainder of the spending from ESSER are non-positions, including the employee appreciation benefit, which we actually approved a modification to tonight, the Build Our Own Aspire Academy, which is really helping us get some additional teachers into our classroom, retention stipends that were paid for Title I and self-contained special education program teachers, tutoring, and an expanded summer school program. It's important to recognize and note that the spending is aligned with the governing board direction around ESSER funds, and that the money is utilized and continues to be utilized to help address learning loss that was experienced through COVID-19. All of these items in ESSER are a focus for us in the budget cycle, trying to determine if they should be incorporated into our budget moving forward, and if so, how. We are also critically evaluating our use of developers' assistance resources to support positions. This revenue stream is driven by developments within our community, and over time, as the district becomes more and more built out, this revenue stream will be minimal. In the past, Litchfield has used the resources for staffing new schools in its first year in operations, as well as for a certain number of teaching positions in the last 2 years. This slide shows the last 10 years of revenue in the fund, and really it highlights how much the revenue can differ year to year. For example, you can see last fiscal year we had almost 130,000. But the year prior, we had a little bit over $500,000 of revenue. Both this year and last year, the fund supported 6 teaching positions. These positions are part of our typical or standard staffing standard. And to help ensure we can support our staffing standard ongoing and in a sustainable way, we'd like to bring these positions back into M&O. This slide shows a summary of where we ended M&O last year, specifically having spent $73,000 more than reoccurring budget capacity generated for the year. In terms of our budget work, this simply reminds us that without further changes, there's not additional recurring resources to bring these items back over into M&O. This slide shows a summary of those items that we've talked about this evening that we'll be evaluating for how best to incorporate them into the budget or discontinue moving forward. Our first step in this work is strengthening our mutual understanding of where our M&O dollars went last year as a starting point. The significant majority, which we'll be seeing on our next slide, goes to salaries and benefits. This slide details out what that actually looks like in broad categories and by type of position. Similar to what we saw in our ESSER spending, you can see here our money really is focused on our students and our schools. I'll just pause for a second for you to take in the slide. When we look at M&O as a whole, salaries, benefits, and everything else, we see that 90% of our M&O spending was on people, with 82% being our district employees and 8% being contracted staff. Our next largest categories are utilities and our insurance coverage. Together, staffing and those two make up 95% of our M&O spending in fiscal year 2023. Following those, we have transportation, including diesel fuel, repairs, and maintenance on our buildings, custodial, and special education outplacements. When we look at our M&O spending in this way, we do not see significant opportunity for savings outside of our staffing model. However, that's not to say we're not critically evaluating those areas. For example, to help better manage utilities, we're currently evaluating additional systems and programs to help monitor those areas. However, based on our initial conversations with potential partners in this area, long-term, it's more likely that we're able to curb growth in spending in those areas, more so than seeing significant budget savings. As a result, during this budget process, you'll see the team spend a significant amount of time focused on our staffing standards, with the ultimate goal being a balanced approach to ensure we have the best, most appropriate, and sustainable supports in our classrooms. You'll also see us looking at other funding sources to consider continuing some of the supports we've discussed tonight, whether that's finding a new home for the Aspire program or supporting summer school and tutoring from Title I funds, similar to how it was supported prior to the introduction of ESSER funds. The team is also working on engaging an employee benefits partner to critically evaluate our employee benefits and assist with both a competitive renewal for this coming year and build out a longer-term strategy for our employee benefits to ensure both the district and our employees are getting the best bang for their buck possible from our benefits. Throughout this budget process, we're also focused on ensuring that we remain in a competitive space from a compensation perspective so that we can best recruit and retain the best talent possible. Before moving forward onto state level context and our timeline for the budget cycle, I'd like to pause to see if there are any questions on what we've shared so far.
Ms. Clymer?
Yeah, I have 2 really quick questions. On slide 6, talking about the ESSER 3 anticipated spending non-positions, you have summer school listed as $336,000. Is that $336,000 over and above the state, I'm blanking on the name right now, summer school grant that was given?
So at this time, we're actually not anticipating any additional funding from the state. We have in prior years received additional funding for summer school, but this coming year, we've still not heard anything regarding additional funds for summer school. So as of right now, that is the total that we would anticipate spending this summer on
Okay.
summer school.
If we were to continue at the same level with zero support.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Slide 8, you went through the developer assistance. So I'm just trying to understand, like you said, there's varying levels there, and we have, I think on the next slide, 6 teacher FTE positions. So when you have this anticipated spending, do you have any way to project what those revenues will be? I mean, it looks like you're going $300,000, but that's double, almost triple what we currently had this past year. So how does that projection work?
So you can definitely see why it's a focus and why we're curious, why we're wanting to bring it back into M&O. The reason it's so difficult to anticipate what developer assistance revenues will be is it's entirely driven by developments in the community. So when a developer develops in our area, typically speaking, they enter into an agreement with us, and those are approved by the governing board. So you may be able to recall instances where that's occurred. How we actually get the revenue, though, is, for example, if it's a housing development, they're agreeing to give us a certain amount for every lot that they sell. But it's not until they sell the lot that we have the legal right to receive the revenue. And so it entirely depends on the development timeline and the housing market, and how quickly or slowly the developers are able to make that initial sale of the property. And so we really don't know, to answer your question, what developer assistance revenue will look like at any particular time. And the data on the screen here, where I'm showing the historical revenue, you can see that even with historical data, it would be very difficult to estimate. And that's because over time, the development characteristics of different areas within the district change. Sure. When it's an apartment complex, it works a little bit differently. We typically receive all of the revenue for every unit of an apartment complex when the certificate of occupancy is issued. And so those tend to come in large lump sums, whereas houses, we kind of get a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there as the individual lots are sold. But the point you're making, that we, for the past 2 years, have consistently planned or budgeted to have a little over $300,000 of expenses coming from that funding source, is why we're wanting to bring it back into M&O. It's really our thought that if it's going to be part of our typical staffing standard, we should be able to support it from our recurring regular M&O budget. Because these 6 teachers aren't 6 additional teachers on the campus. Right. It's teacher positions that are being generated by our board approved class sizes and our enrollments.
Okay. Agreed. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I have a few comments to make. So, CFO Vaughn, you just alluded to it, but when talking about the goals for the budget process, I just want to be really clear as to what we're looking at. So when you say take a holistic look at the staffing standards to ensure a balanced approach that maximizes the positive supports in the classroom, what you're really saying, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that we need to be open to considering the balance between class sizes and interventions. Specifically, I think math specialists are, as we saw, fully funded from the ESSER funds, and those ESSER funds are going away. So from a board standpoint, I want to make sure that when you come back and make recommendations for the staffing standards to potentially change those or alter those, I want to make sure that we're looking at the data behind that to create a balance, maybe an offset between a measurable trade-off of class size and interventions to make sure that the student success is still at the forefront. I know this board fought to reduce our class sizes in the past, and we're told that it would be millions of dollars more than what the actual cost was. So I want to make sure that the opposite is also not true, that any savings that we might see from that are based in reality, and also to look at the data to see if we've seen any improvement from the reduction in class sizes. I just want to try to get us to see the possibilities of meeting in the middle and not saying, for example, okay, math specialists were funded from ESSER, so let's eliminate math specialists. I want us to hopefully be able to come to a balance of keeping some of the math specialists, looking at the data and keeping them at the schools that need them most based on student performance and where the students need them the most, knowing that we won't be able to balance the budget and keep math specialists at every school that we have them at now, since it was really a district position. I really like the idea of looking at the new funding sources for the resources to fill the gaps from ESSER. I also appreciate the movement of recurring expenses from sources that are ending, which include ESSER, include the developer funds, moving those back to M&O to make sure that we know where we stand year after year. And again, consistency is really what we're looking for there. And I think kind of those Band-Aids that have been put in time, whether it's the classroom site fund or the developer fund or ESSER, we now are going to have to come to some really tough decisions in our overall strategy to make sure that we can balance our M&O funds. And I understand that obviously from ESSER as well, there were other positions that perhaps should have been eliminated that were not, based on the number of students that we have in some of our sites as well. So again, kind of going off of these goals, I think the long-term strategy for employee benefits is also important. I've been an advocate of looking at those for a while. We obviously did a kind of a first step in pushing the increase last year in premiums to our employees while maintaining a free or no cost option for the employee, a health insurance benefit as well with that. And of course, I want us to be able to maintain the competitive compensation piece. That's obviously really important in the current teacher shortage that we have going on. So I think you're totally on track. I just want to make sure that you know that I can see, and I would speak for President Zeidema and Board Member Clymer to say that we all know what's going to happen and that we're going to have some really difficult conversations in this, but I'm prepared for that. And I look forward to hearing what your recommendations are and you working with the entire admin team to come up with those. It's going to be hard work, but I appreciate it.
If you don't mind, I will take the opportunity to expand a little bit on what I mean by taking a holistic look at our staffing standards.
Sure.
So we've already began engaging in conversations with our admin council, which includes all administration in the district, superintendent's advisory council, which includes representation from both certified and classified team members, looking at our full staffing standard. And that's really what I mean by holistic. We're talking about what staffing, how we staff our schools out of M&O, out of classroom site fund, out of ESSER. We're looking at the whole picture holistically because, as you stated, Board Member Moran, we have the opportunity to decide that something that's in ESSER may be important to keep, and therefore we would need to identify something else that could be swapped out or modified to allow budget capacity for that. And so that's really what I mean by the word holistic. We are focused on the items that I went through, the $4 million of activity, but to focus on those things, we are taking a holistic view. For example, at our last admin council meeting, I had the pleasure of introducing our principals and administrators to a spreadsheet I had developed, which allowed them to toggle and change different aspects of our staffing standard and see estimates of the savings that those sorts of changes would generate. That's just one example of how we're engaging our stakeholders and gathering feedback to get initial ideas of what we may think would work best for options for this work moving forward. We're also having discussions as an admin cabinet around what the best way may be to ensure that our staffing standards are as data-driven as possible, honoring the fact that, and you stated this too, Board Member Moran, that a lot of our needs and data are at a school level. And so what opportunities do we have to infuse data-driven decision-making at the school level where the data is, to make sure that our staffing standards are flexible enough to address the individual needs at the individual schools while still being data-driven. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like it's right in line with what I'd like to see. So again, I appreciate that, the clarification, and look forward to seeing more detail behind what you and the team can come up with to solve this problem.
I do not have any questions, but I agree. I think we should not mince words. We are going to be looking at cutting things this upcoming year, and that's going to be hard conversations that we're going to have. I feel confident in our admin team to be able to really get feedback from all the stakeholders, to be able to make a recommendation that they feel is best for our students. I feel confident in this board that we're going to be able to have those hard conversations, and we're going to be able to make hard decisions, and then be able to support you guys going forward when those hard decisions ripple effect, right? So I think that we're ready to do that. We understand what we're headed into. So just know that we are ready to do the work right alongside you. As a side note, I'm sure that Kim wants to see your spreadsheet and play with it.
It is pretty fun. Stephen, would you be kind enough to go back to the other presentation? I didn't actually finish it. Thank you. Stephen, I had updated this presentation prior to uploading it to Board Docs. This is not the slide that is on Board Docs. Can you please bring up the presentation that is on Board Docs? It's publicly accessible, so if you could, sorry for the sorry for the delay.
We are okay.
He's just making sure I'm still paying attention.
I mean, we're moving along a little quicker than I thought we might, to be honest. I'm knocking on this table though.
I'm doing my best.
I think you can probably do it just right from our website on the governing board page. It links directly to.
You also can just Google Litchfield Elementary School District Board Docs. That may or may not be how I do it every time.
Bookmarks, Michael, bookmarks.
Yes, sir. And then at the top middle, you'll see meetings. If you could select November 14th, view agenda. go down to towards the bottom of discussion because we were kind enough to have me towards the end. And we are on 15. And if you could scroll down and open that, hopefully it'll allow me to navigate. If not, we're going to have some fun together. Okay, would you mind going one more slide down? And then can you minimize the slide view that you currently have on the left-hand side?
In order to do that, you're probably going to have to download it. Is it PDF? And he's looking at it in the browser, so he doesn't have as much control over the PowerPoint as you do. So
isn't this fun, Stephen?
we may just have to. I don't know.
All right.
That IT professional shine. Just
Yes. We're so
Moment
thankful to
stillness.
have Stephen on our team.
the
you
thousands of
very
people
much.
watching at home are, what? Why are we laughing? Come on. We got a huge
All right.
audience on YouTube.
I'll try to get us back on track. All right. So we've covered some Litchfield specific context and some goals for our budget process. Now I'd like to share a couple of updates on the state level that color what we might expect from the state in their next budget. The aggregate expenditure limit is a provision in the state constitution which limits the aggregate spending of school districts in the state regardless of appropriations approved in the state budget. In the past several years, this limit has been exceeded and the legislature has approved to allow school districts to exceed the limit. For the year we're currently in, the aggregate expenditure limit has been addressed, but it has not yet been addressed for fiscal year 2025 and will be an item we'll have to keep an eye on each year. Based on recent information published by the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, which helps monitor and forecast the state's budget, much like I help you do that for our school district, the state is expected to have budget shortfalls the next 2 years due to weaker than anticipated tax revenues. As a result, we do not presently anticipate significant additional increases to the base support level or other revenues beyond those already anticipated by the JLBC, which includes the standard 2% adjustment to the base support level and similar increase to our capital funding. It's also important to note and keep track of Proposition 123 funding, which was the voter-approved resolution to the inflation funding lawsuit several years ago. The Proposition 123 funding has been boosting our capital resources or revenue by approximately $650,000 per year. These resources may or may not be continued using the state's general fund. We're still not entirely sure on that. However, equally as significant as part of Prop 123, the legislature is given the option to not provide districts with their inflation funding if the Department of Education becomes a certain percentage of the state's general fund. The JLBC currently anticipates that that will be triggered in fiscal year 2027, which is a similar timeline to what I presented during last budget cycle. They still believe that that will occur. As we look forward in the budget season, we can see tonight we're discussing budget reserves, which is my next presentation, our timeline and other goals for the budget process. In December, we hope to see options on our boundary work and a multi-year budget forecast for the team to consider as a starting point. In January, we hope to have data from our compensation study and our initial administrative recommendations, work calendars, and contract language. In February, we hope to release contracts and have initial discussions on benefits. In March, we will have the benefit renewal discussion and an updated multi-year budget forecast. In April, we will bring the final recommendation for board approval. At this time, the team is available to answer any questions you might have on the district's proposed budget process for fiscal year 2025.
Ms. Clymer,
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
No additional questions. I appreciate the timeline and the clarity and transparency of this presentation.
No questions. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to discussing the reserves, which is also going to be by CFO Vaughn. This is basically the time of year where he just does all our stuff at our meetings.
I do appreciate you entertaining me. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining us tonight to discuss the district's approach to operational fund balances and reserves. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic plan to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school finance and funding. Reserves are effectively the district's emergency fund. And just like in your personal finances, determining the appropriate amount of an emergency fund is a balancing act. You want to make sure you have enough to mitigate your risks, but there's not much benefit in having too much. To help ensure the district is taking a critical risk-based approach to our reserves, the district evaluates the model published by the Governmental Finance Officers Association for operational reserves. The GFOA risk-based model asks governments to consider their risk exposure in several areas detailed on the slide. These include extreme financial events, revenue stability, expense volatility, leverage, liquidity, the extent operations are supported outside the general fund, growth, and the need for reserves for capital projects. The district has significant risk to extreme events, revenue stability, liquidity, and other funds supporting operations. The district experiences some risk due to inflation factors and expense volatility, and little to no risk from leverage due to our debts being directly supported by specific tax levies for those purposes, similar to, and really what I'm referring to, is the bond programs, such as the one that was recently approved in our most recent election. This slide shows inflation-adjusted base support level or funding received per student from 2002 to current day. This graph illustrates a couple of significant points. First, when the state has significant budget issues, as it did during the Great Recession, the school districts can and have taken a cut. Second, inflation has had a significant impact on districts' purchasing power in the last couple of years. The inflation funding adjustments districts do receive are not sufficient to keep up with actual inflation. This is actually the second time the board is seeing this slide tonight. This is the same slide that Dr. Davidson and Eric shared in the operations presentation. They got it on their slide a little bit nicer than I did. Our facilities assessment that was presented to the governing board on April 25th, 2023 shows $33.7 million in needs over the next 5 years. Those needs will largely be supported by a mixture of new bond funds and capital resources. We thank our community for their support. This will allow our capital funds to be focused on other capital needs. When we talk about reserves, the GFOA identifies their recommendation as a percentage of operating revenues. In Litchfield, I've defined these as our recurring M&O resources, as well as revenue from funds we consider part of the reserves. The various components are detailed on the slide. The funds we consider part of our reserves include all the funds that can be used for fairly broad usage, including all of those on the slide. However, I would like to point out a couple of these, including community schools, which is our preschool and extended day programs. These fund balances are largely restricted to those two areas in practice, even if they may not legally be, until those programs are being operated sustainably. And gifts and donations, which includes a large amount of resources that are restricted at specific school levels. So they may be more difficult to actually deploy as reserves, but I've included them to be fully transparent because legally these funds can be used for broad purposes. Based on the GFOA's risk-based model and the district's characteristics, it's their recommendation that our reserves fall within 3.12 and 4.2 months of operating revenues. Administration recommends that we follow the GFOA's recommendation. Litchfield ended last year with 4.1 months of reserves, which puts the district at the upper range of the GFOA's recommendation, but still at an appropriate level. I will provide an updated analysis of our reserves as we get deeper into the budget process and begin looking at multi-year forecasts. That's when I will provide an update on where it looks like we may end this year, as well as moving forward. At this time, the team is available to answer any questions you might have on the district's approach to financial reserves.
Ms. Clymer,
No questions.
Ms. Moran,
Yes, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. So based on ending fiscal year 23 at 34.4%, we're obviously at the upper end of where we really should be. And to your point, CFO Vaughn, there's not a lot of benefit from being over reserved. So I know that you are going to put together a forecast to see, you know, where this is going to put us over time. But I would like to potentially see us utilizing some reserves in fiscal year 25 to help smooth that transition out of the ESSER funding cliff.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the things we're looking at and considering, and it's a primary benefit of having healthy reserves going into this. But yes, I appreciate the comment, and that is something that we're looking at.
Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Moran stole my comment about the extra reserves and hoping to use it to kind of soften the blow slightly next year. So I don't have any questions. Thank you for putting this together. I don't want to say I look forward to these conversations we're going to have going forward, but I'm here for it. We're here for it. We're going to get it done. With that, we've reached the end of all of our discussion items, and we are going to move on to reports. We will start with Superintendent Davidson.
Thank you, President Zeitem and members of the board. It's been a busy month since we last met, and we did have a presentation on school labels, but maybe who I didn't thank, and I don't recall if I did, but I don't think so. I'm going to thank you all as governing board members, because certainly your support of our schools and the work that the administrative team either did as we honor our past, but embrace the future the new team is going to do. We appreciate you and your leadership from the board's perspective. So thank you. We've been out visiting campuses, from pie tours to Thanksgiving feast to governing board showcases, and certainly board members, you've been being a part of those as well. But just what a great opportunity to celebrate our staff and our students, and just to engage with parents has been a great time. And certainly I've enjoyed some turkey recently, so it's been fun to be out there. Community engagement, you've heard a variety of ways that we're trying to continue to capture the voice of our staff and our community through surveys, and our superintendent's advisory council had some real positive feedback recently from some team members on how we're just really trying to use that group as a problem-solving group, not just a distribution of information type of scenario. So that's been fun. Wanted to highlight Ms. Larson and her team for the Cafecitos work, trying to reach a group of parents who are not native English speakers and trying to provide resources to them on how they can best support their children in our school. So I'm really appreciative of that work, and I know Mr. Nwan has been supporting as well. You saw in the most recent update, many of our schools and our sports teams have had dominating performances across the valley, and so we just want to highlight the efforts of our kids, but our coaches as well, and our principals for just giving of their time and effort to lead to student success. Dr. Doozy and team, I mentioned earlier how our administrative teams are also working through that PLC process. We have one going that we have titled Discipline Revamp Camp, and that is based on feedback from our schools and our families on discipline from a communication perspective, from a consistency perspective, and how that plays out across our K through 8 platform. So we're really happy about the work that her and Ms. Benjamin and team are working on. Just a couple more items. We want to thank Kevin, our LES parents. You've seen his name a large amount of partners to provide over, or I think it's up to 1,000 turkeys to staff members across the West Valley. Those coming out this coming Litchfield families, staff are represented in that. And I wanted to highlight the vote of confidence that our community has given our district on behalf of our bond initiative. And just wanted to celebrate every single person that put in a vote because it was based on the fact that us to do what's best for their kids and their kids' future. So thank you and time tonight.
Thank you. We will move on to governing board reports. We will start with Ms. Clymer.
All right, I will try to keep this brief. First, I want to say it's been a nice break. We had fall break, and as governing board members, we're used to doing things on a weekly basis, whether it's meetings or whatever it is that, tours or whatever we're doing. And I enjoyed our nice little break after fall break, just sort of relaxing and not having as many meetings and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you guys for just taking care of everything while we got to relax for a little bit. Now we're geared up and ready to get into boundaries and budget. So I should have just given up my break if I didn't have to deal with that, but I'm just playing. 2 school showcases in the last month, Western Sky and Mabel Paget. So thank you to principals Garrett and Willis for welcoming us on campus. Your assistant principal, instructional coaches, behavior coaches. I mean, everybody just rolls out the red carpet for us, shows everything that you guys are working on in your schools. And it's such a delight to be there. So thank you for making time for us and answering all of our questions and showing off what it means to, be a student there on that campus. Several of us attended also the Tri-District Veterans Day celebration. So thank you to Agua Fria for spearheading that effort along with Avondale Elementary and of course us. It's a great celebration every year. I think it's the 3rd year maybe that it's been going on. And just want to say congratulations to the students of L. Thomas Heck Choir who performed. They did an amazing job. I think they also performed last year as well. But it's nice to see our students shine and for people to, be able to see all the things that we can do here at Litchfield. Also wanted to just have a big shout out. I know Melissa and Kim are going to go very deep into this school letter grade thing. So I'm going to take the bond and I'm just going to say thank you to every parent, student, teacher, staff member, administrator, district administrator, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, pet dogs. It doesn't matter to me. Everybody got out. They spoke to their neighbors. They talked to their family and friends. They engaged on our behalf to let them know how much this was needed. And whether it was by 1 vote or 1 million votes, our community entrust us with doing what is best for students. And I am greatly appreciative of that and understand what that means and don't take it lightly. So thank you to everyone who in our community that supported this bond effort. And if you didn't, I hope that you will give us the opportunity to change your mind the next time around, because I think we are doing some pretty amazing things here. And I'm just happy and proud to say that the majority of our community recognizes that and trusts us with your young people. So thank you very much.
Ms. Moran.
Yes, Board Member Clymer, you know me well, and I will go deep on both topics. But I'm going to start with last week, I had the privilege of going to bingo night at Western Sky Middle School, which was simply for fun. I don't get to do a lot of simply for fun things in this role. And so I really was there as a parent, but I wanted to thank the PTO at Western Sky for putting on a wonderful event that was, again, purely for fun, great time for families, community get together. Lots of teachers were there as well. So it was fantastic. I also was able to go on both of the school showcases that we had in the last month to Western Sky Middle School and Mabel Paget Elementary. It's always a pleasure to see our campuses firsthand, to see the teachers, staff, and the students hard at work in the classroom and hear about the exceptional programs and instruction happening in our schools every single day. I also spent some time in the last month writing an op-ed piece that was published in the West Valley View on the October 25th print edition. It's also available online. It speaks to my personal story of why I pour my heart and soul into this work and why I value public education. And it also dispels some of the misperceptions and misinformation that's out there. So check it out if you are so inclined. Now on to the celebrations piece. So on Tuesday, November 7th was election day. And as you know, LESD 79 had a bond on the ballot. It was a suspenseful week as we waited for the numbers. We started down, then we went up, and then we weren't sure what was happening. But in the end, the final count for Maricopa County shows that this bond passed by 87 votes. So during the month of October, I spent some time canvassing my own neighborhood and to get the word out to voters, along with many other volunteers who work to educate voters. So I want to thank all the volunteers who got out factual information as well as information for both districts, Litchfield and the Agua Fria bonds to help support public education in our community. I am very grateful to our community for the support, which never ceases to amaze me. We go out, we ask you for an override. You give us the override that goes to help support teachers and support education in our classrooms. We ask you for a bond to help with our safety and security and our transportation and build a new school, and you say yes. And I just want to assure everyone that each dollar will be spent with the greatest care and efficiency possible. On this board, we take fiscal responsibility very seriously and appreciate your trust and investment in your local public schools. So waited with bated breath day in and day out last week, but very, very happy and pleased to get the final word from Maricopa County elections today that this bond was successful. So again, very grateful and appreciative of that. The last thing I want to highlight is how proud I am of our district and our school letter grades. 14 A's, 1 B, a 3.93 GPA, incredible, stupendous, and amazing are all words that I would use to describe our results. But let me read for you what the Arizona State Board of Education says. So in case you're not aware, they publish frequently asked questions about the school letter grades. So in their information, it says, what does each letter grade mean? So under A, the Arizona State Board of Education defines an A letter grade as excellent, distinguished performance on the statewide assessment, significant student growth, students on track to proficiency, overall performance is significantly higher than the state average. That is what our State Board of Education says about our district. Let that sink in for a moment. Excellent. Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself. And these results wouldn't be possible without the dedication to student success shown by everyone in LESD 79, from our student transporters to food service, to payroll, to facilities, to IT, to our instructional coaches, to district leadership, to our front office staff, to our classroom teachers, to our principals, to our instructional aides, and our behavior techs. Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication. Thank you also to our families and our students for your perseverance and resilience through the learning loss of COVID and spending these ESSER funds. I know that those decisions were critical in seeing the student growth that we saw this year. To my fellow board members, Danielle Clymer and Melissa Zeidema, thank you for always putting students first. This has been a hard-fought road, and we are seeing the positive results that make it all worth it. You ladies are a pleasure to work with. I appreciate you. Now, we aren't going to sit back and rest on our laurels, but this is a time and season of celebration. Let's take time to enjoy these wins. Sit with it. Savor it. You are all to be commended. As it's only appropriate, I'm going to close with lyrics from Kool and the Gang's classic hit Celebration. Celebrate good times. Come on, let's celebrate.
Knew I should have just jumped in front of her today. Okay, well, I will try to keep mine short. as this is running a little longer than our meetings have been in the past, but they have been very productive. So the month of November in my family is our month where we really every day find something to be thankful for, and we share it with our family. Everyone has a thing that they have to come up with what they're thankful for, and we are very good about making sure we do it every day. So I'm going to try to tie that into my stuff today, because everything I've done this month, which, yes, to board member Clymer's point, it was kind of quiet, but then I started figuring out all the things we've done since I took 2 weeks off, and it's been a lot. So it's been very busy. I was able to volunteer. Volunteering is super important to me, and I will talk about it every time at our board meetings, because our schools cannot do it alone. And there's many, many ways where people can get involved and volunteer that don't necessarily involve coming into the classroom and working with little kindergartners on their reading groups. It can be taking stuff home. It can be helping in the back office. There's just many, many ways that you can volunteer. So if you are not volunteering in a school, please, please, please get connected with one and figure out ways to start volunteering. And with that, I'd like to say that I am thankful to all of our parents and community members who give their time to our schools. We cannot do it alone. It's a team effort always, and you are part of that team. So thank you for helping us get to where we are. I was also, as a parent, able to attend the Rancho Santa Fe Halloween Festival. There was lots of campuses. We saw that in the principal reports, that there's just lots of campuses that do fun things around this time of year. And I'm so thankful to the parent groups and the schools that put those events on and bring our families out. We know that family engagement only furthers our academic success for our students. So thank you to everybody that puts those events on and makes opportunities for our families to get out and enjoy that time together, and to show our community what it looks like on our campus in the fun times, right? Because that's also important stuff that we do. We went to school showcases at Western Sky Middle School and also at Mabel Pageant Elementary School. And I am thankful to all our student leaders on the campuses. We were able to hear from student leaders at both campuses, and they gave us insight to what they do for their clubs and activities and how they're able to be a voice on their campus. So thank you to those students and to the parents that drive their kids to school early or pick them up late so that they can do those activities and they can be a voice for their students, because everything we do is for our students. And so therefore, we want to make sure we're hearing from them in the decisions that we're making. I was able to attend the Tri-District Veterans Day celebration, which was a beautiful ceremony that they had. And I'm going to say the other thing before I share my thing about what I'm thankful for. I was able to attend the Purple Star School ceremony at Dreaming Summit Elementary School. And that was also to celebrate veterans at their campus. Both of these things make me very thankful for all the veterans that have chosen to come teach in our schools and work in our schools. First, they went and served and protect our country and keep us all safe. And then they're choosing to come and work here and to serve our students so that our students can be successful in life. So they are true heroes that we should be so thankful to choose to come and work for us after all they've done. I'm also thankful to the military families that choose to bring their kids here when they're stationed out at Luke, because they're trusting us with their children when their children have to go through changes all the time. And we can come be a shining light for them of acceptance and inclusion and make that change for them as easy as possible. And I appreciate Dreaming Summit for taking on the Purple Star School and doing that and allowing us to be part of that ceremony. Thank you for allowing me to come speak. I did grow up as a military kid, so I get it. Like, it's a tough thing, and we want to make sure that we are offering a place for them to feel safe and warm and loved so that they can then learn and grow when there are a lot of changes in their lives. I was also able to participate in serving lunch at both Wigwam Creek Middle School and Rancho Santa Fe. I'm looking forward to also serving lunch this week at Barbara Roby and White Tanks. And those lunches are great. It's something that I really appreciate our district does every year to make sure we have this Thanksgiving feast where we invite families to come out and have this meal with their students. Our cafeteria workers work their tails off to make those tasty, delicious meals that you come out and eat, and the kids are excited for it. Mostly, maybe not everything, but most of the kids are very excited about it, and it's just a fun experience. So I am thankful to our amazing cafeteria crew at all our campuses for feeding our students healthy and delicious meals every day, and especially all the extra effort that went into making these Thanksgiving feasts at all our campuses a special memory for families. I was also able to participate in the parent and community panel for Rancho Santa Fe. They are up for a National Title I Distinguished Award school, like looking at to get this National Title I Distinguished Award. And they were picked from, there was 14 schools, I believe, that they were going to do tours of. And there was over 75 applications that came in, but they picked our school. They mentioned at this panel that was done by the Arizona Department of Education, had a bunch, like 4 people that came in to talk to this group of people. And it's very similar to like an A+ visit, a little bit shorter, but still similar kind of experience. They explained that Rancho was actually the last application came in, but it was so great that they knew they had to be one of the schools that they toured. And their school is spectacular. And I was very happy to be able to share my experiences as a parent and as a board member that's been able to see the school before my kids went there, and why I think it's a fantastic school. But I did want to share with that why they're being looked at for this award. So they qualify under 2 reasons. One is for the exceptional student performance. This is the number 1 reason that they qualified. And then they also qualify for this award as for closing the achievement gap between students groups for 2 or more years. Again, more evidence that we are doing what is best for kids every day, and our kids are succeeding every single day, which is why our schools earn their letter grades, which I'll get to in a second. So I was very appreciative to get to be on that panel, and it's just an example again of all the great things our schools are doing for our kids every single day. And I'm anxiously awaiting to hear how that goes. I believe we're supposed to hear back in the next, tomorrow, right? They're visiting their last school, I believe, today. So then we should hear back about how they do, but they're going to pick 2 schools or 1 school? Yeah, 2 schools out of the schools that they toured. I have high hopes to see that Rancho is one of them because they are an amazing campus. I am so thankful to our community for giving us this yes on our bond. And I know that it feels like schools are always asking for money, right? But the fact is that our letter grades, I feel like they're interconnected. Our schools are doing great. We have 14 A schools and 1 B school. We are an A-rated district, one of the best in the states, like all my other board members, everybody said tonight. We have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that we will do what's best for kids and that what we're doing is working. Our kids are succeeding, regardless of what you hear from anybody that might sit up on this board and thinks differently, or anybody in the community. We are always putting kids first, and what we do is working. So I'm glad that our community is able to see those letter grades, and then they were able to vote for our bond and to support it, because you've trusted us to do what's best for your kids, and we're going to keep doing that. And I know that with this bond passing, we're going to be able to do more things than we would have been able to do otherwise. It makes it easier on us as a board to make some decisions. It's going to make the boundary changes easier for us to have that conversation. So thank you to the community members that went out and voted. And I echo what Board Member Clymer said. I hope that those that didn't vote in favor of it this time do give us the opportunity to prove that we are the best place for kids to be and that they can trust us in the future. And with that, I'm going to move on to our principal reports and our admin reports. Thank you guys for the reports. We love the pictures and all the stuff that's in it. We learned so much. I think it's great. I hope that community members, when they're looking at stuff on board docs, they read through it, because it's a really great way to see what's happening on all our campuses. So thank you guys for putting those together for us. We really appreciate it. And I think that is all we have tonight.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
Having a motion and a second, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Clymer?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Have a great night.